Here's why I think we need a new popular paradigm for charitable giving. As we all know, we're living in an unprecedented time. There's poverty, climate change, and a host of other things that I can't even begin to name that's happening around the world. And a lot of people are motivated to help out. One of the ways that people have responded to this has been through the effective altruist movement. This is a movement that was inspired by consequentialist philosophers like Peter Singer and Derek Parfit, who are really concerned about the way that people in affluent countries were just turning a blind eye to the tremendous suffering that's happening in other parts of the world. I myself work in this software for nonprofit industry and have always been very interested in their ideas. At the same time, as someone who's also interested in questions of justice and questions about the way that we live a meaningful and emotionally fulfilling life, I've also recognized that the effective altruist movement ideas can be expanded on, and we can actually approach the way we do international aid and national local aid in a whole new light, inspired by the ideas of other thinkers. Two pillars that I think can really expand on these ideas include the premise that society benefits when there are just institutions, and second, that society benefits when there's a path for people to develop their full potential. If we include all three of those together, we're ultimately concerned about consequences and the impact of our charity, as well as human rights and human meaning. This has implications for two different areas. The first, and the way that I think about it in my personal life, is when it comes to the way that we deal with our financial responsibilities. You see, in effective altruism, the idea is that bigger is always going to be better. If we can add to the amount that we donate, everything is even more effective. So if that means that you skip your avocado toast for some ramen, then by all means, that's how you would be more effective. But I think there's nuance to that in fact, we have to consider not only our financial capacity, but also our personal responsibilities. Some people would say that doing that would mean that you would treat particular people special, like, for example, people in your local community as more special than people in another country, and that ethics is about actually eliminating those biases. However, I think that there's nuance. There's actually room for the way that doing local charity, like a cleanup in your neighborhood, can actually be a way to sustain social connection and bonds that are beyond the basic needs that we normally think of when we think of aid. Additionally, I think that emotions are actually really important for giving, that we should have a sense of compassion and cultivate that as part of our ethical development as individuals. So when I see the immense and tremendous suffering that heartbreakingly occurs across the world, and sometimes in my own backyard, I actually think that feeling something in response to that is something that, unlike ethics that tells us to exclude that from our consideration, should actually be a part of it. And I also think that this framework of thinking about giving sustainably has implications for the types of impact and charities that we choose. For example, we would continue giving to aid, but we would also think about how policy changes can further equity in various societies. For example, within the US, the Equal Justice Initiative was a huge resource in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd. They were able to speak to racial equality in a way that would actually improve lives for a lot of people, Black people. In addition, human development is so important. We have to think about how doing this actually impacts people from the perspective of their ability to care for themselves and to fulfill their potential. It's not enough to just say that we're going to put out the fire. We also have to think about why there was a fire in the first place, and also how people can help put out their own fires in their own communities. Of course, all of these issues are bound up in a much broader political conversation and questions about democracy and economic justice and social justice and all of the rest. And we need to have activities that we do in order to further those causes, while at the same time acknowledging that generosity is also something that's really a big part of the good life, the way to live fulfilling lives as people. So with that, I encourage people to look for charities that they would like. And in my case, I really like Oxfam. I think that they do a great job with aid and justice and human development. And I encourage other people to look for that and figure out how you can expand your definition of what it means to contribute to the world.